Ever feel like no matter how much you practice in sim racing, the car just doesn't do what you want? It's not your driving, it's the setup that's fighting your skill. Today, I'll prove how the right setup level can actually make you a better driver and how the wrong one keeps you stuck forever. I've been sim racing for years and have built multiple setups across different simulations. I have my own shop of different skill level setup packs. To understand this video properly, we're going to explain car setup that you can use, that you can get in this video, and you're gonna test that out on track, push the car as hard as you can until you kind of are stuck on lap time, and then you can pick a higher level setup that will be more aggressive, more twitchy and more challenging, but will also unlock lap time. In this example, I want to show Silverstone and the McLaren. Before I'll go into this whole video, I have the rear wing to the highest value because on Silverstone it's important to have that rear wing to use the downforce to the max. Let's get into the menus and let's get into the driving. In this first screen, I typically stick to this preload for this car. I have a pretty high traction control settings, so this means whenever you're harsh on throttle input, the grip is not leaving the grip circle so quickly. So we basically have the rear stability pretty much all the time. We have a understeer 9 ABS. I really like this setting in Le Mans Ultimate, and I have a 52 brake bias on the front axle. I'll also talk about this menu a lot with my model and with these settings. So the dampers we didn't really touch. There is a video about this, you can check that in the description. When you go to the screen, we can see that we have pretty stiff springs. We have a packer distance, we have a ride height on the front, we have rear springs, we have some packers at the back, and we have a rear ride height. So let's talk about how this translates into a model, and then we go to the lap. On Silverstone, we did this lap, a 202, like almost a 203, on the level 1.2 setup of the high wing McLaren. Like I explained before, on Silverstone you need the high wing for this really fast corner stability. We're gonna utilize that rear wing as much as possible to have the highest corner speed. Now, to understand front packers, springs, and ride heights together, and the anti-roll bar and rear springs, if you want to understand all of these working together, then this model hopefully will make you understand why certain things give to certain car behavior. And this works in pretty much every simulator if they simulated somewhat properly from the experience that I have in the sim. So let's start with the aero box backwards, and it has a rake of 18 millimeters. Now you don't have to worry about the numbers, it's just to scale it. I'm not saying 18 is best, I also don't say 30 is best, but it's just the value you measure with. So front ride height being 52 static ride height, and the rear ride height is 70. Okay, so that sets the rake of the car. That is the confinement where the rake operates in the car. As we hitting the brakes, this blue box shifts forward. You get an aerodynamic shift as you brake, as you corner the car while you're decelerating. How much this is happening depends on your spring stiffness and the packers. Packers set the end, so it will never exceed the packers, and spring stiffness will determine how much load transfer is needed to make this shift forward. Now, if you are a beginner and you have harsh inputs, if you have a harsh brake input, it will go forward, it will load up the front tires, and if you have an aggressive steer lock while braking, you get a very aggressive shift to the front, and you might turn into oversteer, like snap-on or like braking entry oversteer. That is something that Le Mans Ultimate is really sensitive of. So by introducing more stiffness on the spring and having a longer front packer, we reduce this shift forward. When we on throttle, however, the box shifts backwards. If we have less packers and we have soft springs, this box is like very eager to move backwards. And when this arrow shift is backwards easily, you get a lot of stability on the rear end of the car. Now, if you understand this concept with springs and packers and ride heights, also this is complementary to mechanical grip. So if you have more packers, shorter spring travel, longer spring travel is complementary to mechanical grip as well. So this box, as you see here, is active under high-speed situations for the most part. As you bleed off the brakes, as you're going slower, these ride height changes do not affect car behavior that much because this is not happening anymore. So consider this as a safe level setup, and you very much tend to overload the front tires, you rob them of grip. The rear tires are a very efficient window. We allow them to have a lot of like spring travel and movement, and aerodynamically the car is set up in a way that is safe and forgiving. But the problem with this is that you understeer some, and you're gonna have you need to wait to go on throttle, but you will not spin, and you will do lots of laps, which is kind of enjoyable, right? If you're starting out. Let's look at the lap. If I would start doing some laps on Silverstone for the absolute first time and I wasn't sim racing for a half a year, then I would definitely get this level 1. The thing is with this setup is that you need to wait a lot. You have the aerodynamics shift backwards at this moment, and that produces some understeer. So I can really steer the car. I need to wait, coast, and really use aggressive trail braking technique to kind of make the car turn under the brakes. But overall, the first section there on Silverstone, I can just drive it with confidence. There's no weird sliding or slip angle or whatever. Same for this corner, and you can really see it here that like I need to really steer the car and wait with the trail braking before I can go on throttle again. And we'll see that here as well, because we also have stiffer springs, and I really need to turn the wheel to make the corner the car in a way. And over here I need to like release the throttle because the car simply doesn't have rotation because the rear axle and the rear tires are gripping so much. And in this corner it's the same. So why is this set up then slowly? Well, I need to point the car the way I want it to go. So over here as well, I want the car to rotate faster, but it's simply not possible in how the car is set up at this moment. So over here as well, I need to wait with the throttle. The car doesn't really want to turn. You could even say that it is even harsh on the front tires because you need to steer so much, which eventually might make the car even more understeery as the front tires wear out faster. But we are not going to spin. And I think that this lap is like, for an average person, this might be already kind of an interesting lap time. But in this next clip, I will show you the first setup changes, how we're gonna make this car quicker, and how it's going to be more challenging. This was a 2029. So we were on a level 1, beginner friendly, stability focused. Let's go to another level. And I made quite a lot of changes to get an overall more aggressive car. So first, we reduced some brake bias, so the front value is lower, so the rear tires are going to help out with the braking, giving us like more rotating car under the brakes. We have lower TC settings. Obviously, these changes you can make on a level 1 as well. Only, you don't have to always use suspension, but this is just how I see things. You can see on the compared setup, we have a softer front spring, we have less packers, we have the lowest ride height over here, we have a stiffer rear spring, we have more packers on the back, we have more ride height on the back, we have a stiffer anti-roll bar, and we have like our softer on the front, and we have a stiffer one on the back. So let's talk about it again with the model so you can visually see what we kind of changed. So here we have the level 1 and here's the level 2. You see this difference? On this setup we have less packers. So we're going to have a aero box under high, mid and high speed will be more eager to shift forward. So aerodynamically, there's going to be more air pressure kind of pushing the front tires. So we're going to get more rotation and we don't have to lift so much as the level 1. And also, what also happened is that the front spring, we softened it compared to the other setup. So not only will the shorter package make sure that this distance is going to travel more forwards, it's going to make more, but it's also going to be easier and there's less load transfer needed to get that balance. So as we bleed off the brakes, we also going to really feel this. Now, the ride height also changed. The front ride height got a little bit lower and the rear ride height got a little bit higher. On the previous setup, we had 18 millimeters of rake as of baseline, and now we have 26. Now again, this is not a good or wrong value. Some cars need massive amount of rake changes to feel different behavior. Other cars only need like a few millimeters. So that's really car dependent. So let's talk about a little bit more. Softer front anti-roll bar and a stiffer rear anti-roll bar. Think about an anti-roll bar preventing the car from rolling, but you could also look at it as a grip connectivity bar. This is completely made up, by the way, but what it means is that the softer the anti-roll bar is, the more of a connection we have with the road surface from the inner and outside tire. So front anti-roll bar softness increases a better turn-in, and a stiffer rear anti-roll bar creates a more lively rear end. I will also put a small solver in the description with these setups so you can have a look like what did we do here. Okay, so what we also did is we stiffen up the rear spring a little bit. So when we're on throttle, the aero shift backwards is going to be a bit more challenging for the aerodynamics. So as soon as we hit throttle, the car is not so eager to squat down in its spring travel. So it's going to be on the throttle, it's going to be also a bit more lively on the back. And what it's also going to do is with a little bit more packers, we shorten the distance of the aero box on the back. So the car will simply, at the end of travel, it will not squat that much. Again, like I said, we have now a bit softer springs on the front. We have a bit stiffer springs on the back. Mechanically, this car just now really wants to rotate more. And also the traction control settings and the brake bias is complementary to this behavior as well. These are a lot of minor tweaks, and I feel this car now still feels the same, but it just wants to turn better. If I just only did packers or I only did ride height, I get like weird behavior in the car. I get like sudden rotation that I cannot predict or feel coming. That's why I make all of the small minor changes, and obviously this is level 3, but I have a level that is in between this. So if this one is too challenging for you, you'd pick a level 2, and it's basically an average of the values that I'm explaining now compared to the first level 1 setup. Let's look at the lap and how we improve on lap time and how maybe you can see more rotation in the car. So here we go. By the way, my apologies for the squeaky noise. My steering wheel has some issues. I need to replace it. So this corner now became a lot more challenging because as I'm hitting the brakes, aero shifts forward more eagerly, especially through the packers. And that means that I really need to start being more thoughtful on how much steering input I'm gonna give at a certain moment. So now all of a sudden, imagine like an arrow over the car pointing into like the distance, and these changes we made now makes the car turn faster. But there is like more freedom in how the car wants to turn, but I need to use my brain more to balance the car out with my pedals. You could see on the steering inputs, especially on that previous corner, that I really are like, I'm searching for this balance now all of a sudden. And if you are a beginner, this is too challenging. You might lose the car, or you might oversteer so much that it is not complementary to your lap time. That's why I think if you're really on aggressive setups, it kind of hurts you more than it gives you. That's why I really like to set them up for different levels. Now over here you can see that the lap time delta is dropping, and it's like every corner just a little bit. You know, this is not like your magical solution, copy a fast setup and reduce lap time. No, you still need to do it yourself. You really need to be thoughtful. No, but you can see over here that we have now 6/10, and I believe on this corner, or it was the other one, I'm not sure anymore, but it's still easy to screw up as well. So here you can see I still have a little bit of understeer in these corners. So I really need to wait here as well. Here I'm doing a little bit of a weird braking, but now I can just floor it and floor it and floor it, minor correction, and that's giving us 7/10 of lap time. I cannot do this lap time with the previous setup. So this is a 202. Nice. Let's look at the other level. So we were on the level 1 in the first lap. We picked a level 3 on the second lap, and on the last lap we're gonna explain level 5 and the changes we're making. So we assign this, load this, and we compare the level 3. By the way, I have this for every car in Le Mans Ultimate, with a solver, with different choice PDF, and car-specific solvers to make your own tweaks. And these are the baselines that pretty much work on every track. So you got low downforce, mid downforce for more advantages on the straight line, and low downforce setups for like Le Mans or Monza. So let's have a look on the level 5. So you could go even lower on brake bias and TC settings. There is also a level 6 for even more aggressiveness that I cannot drive. This is basically a little bit of my personal limit. And also, yeah, the brake bias, lower traction control values, and we got a neutral springs here. So on the front, now they are 3 out of 0 are soft. Only 0.5 packers on the front. We have the 3 spring rate, so the middle spring rate. We even increased the rake even some more, so even more rear ride height. Dampers we keep the same. These ones are really thought out of, but sometimes I think it could be use a bit less slow rebound. Anyways. And we have an even softer front anti-roll bar, and that's the thing. Now, if you want even more rotation in this particular setup, some cars really thrive with a little bit of the less toe, less negative toe. That means that the rear tires are pointing a bit, maybe slightly a bit outwards, what could even complement the rotation in the car, but take it as a little bit of a wild card in your setup builds to get more rotation. Let's look at the model. So we went from this to this, and now we're gonna go to this. So see this difference again? And that gave us an even better lap time. So that's what we did. Now, what are you getting here? And let's talk about it some more, so you can really understand how these setups are built up. So on this particular setup, we have an even softer front anti-roll bar. That means we got even more connectivity from the inner and the outside tire. So the outside tire has less overload. We get more body roll, yes. The body roll is a little bit like not helping the aerodynamics, but in this game currently it's kind of gets ignored. Like you really want to like aim towards soft springs sometimes and soft anti-roll bars. But then some cars really are different. So, and by the way, there are multi-million ways to set up these cars. This is something I just really like in my setup builds. So, more rake. So we got this box in general even more pointing forward. And we have a significantly less packers than on the level 3. So that means that the spring travel got a lot longer, complementing mechanical grip, and also makes the box even more forward. This creates even more rotation. Now, I don't need more rotation on the high speed entries. I already got plenty of that, but now I need to have even more for the slow corners where I have the understeer. And the slow corners is especially the front anti-roll bar softness and creating more distance on the springs. Also, when the springs are softer, in the slow speed or mid and slow speed corners, that is again complementary to mechanical grip. So there's even more dominance on the front axle, on the front wheel. So when now I want to turn, the car will move that direction more eagerly than the previous setup. The rear springs, we didn't decrease packers. I didn't find this helpful, but you could make them even higher. So you could use these ones on 15, let's say, and then that will give you even more rotation under the high speed. But I kept it like this, and I made the rear spring stiffer. And that, again, makes the aerodynamic box move backwards more difficultly, like more harder it's going to be to shift that aero backwards. Plus, the stiffer spring kind of robs some mechanical grip from the rear tires, which again makes the car rotate even more. Let's look at that last lap and have like a comparison between all of them after that lap. So, and here's the thing, now we're on this first lap again, on this first corner, and I need to now be really careful. And I need to be so careful that I kind of, because I know that the changes that I made, which does not result in a better lap time all of a sudden, because it's so dangerous. But over here, I found the control, and I can steer the car as we're slowing down. Now I get that rotation from the soft springs, and you can see that we're in this first sector, we gained another 3/10 of lap time. This is absolutely impossible on the level 1 setup, but with plenty of skill, then you can get away with this. Again, with this corner as well, look at that steering wheel. Like these minor changes you see, it's really to balance out the car, to balance that front and rear grip and to keep it on track. Now, half of this lap I didn't really improve any sector. Over here it looks nice, but again, this corner as well with the stiffer rear springs, I can just floor the car and yeah, basically accelerate faster out of corners. I don't have to lift anymore. And the same goes for this one. I have such an aerodynamic freedom in the car that I'm taking that apex more, and I can take this apex more. I'm going a little bit wide here, but again, also with the braking and mechanical grip, and you can see how the lap time delta is dropping. Now, I am not an alien, you know? I am really passionate about sim racing. I'm kind of like 1.5 seconds, sometimes 2 seconds off the absolute fastest people, but yeah, I don't know, maybe you can get something from this. If I wanted to go faster, I typically take an even more aggressive approach in my practices to kind of learn the balancing of this front axle dominance, because I think when you're using different skill levels like this, then you can kind of like get a feel for how more aggressive cars progressively are, and that way you can learn this lap time. So this is like a 2015. So all of these 3 setups you can across a lot of different tracks. So the common belief is that you need a track specific setup for the ultimate lap time. Yes, but these kind of skill levels will work across different tracks pretty much everywhere. You don't need a specific setup. Sometimes specific setups is just one click of ride height, more or less, or maybe a tweak of the brake bias, maybe sometimes a differential setting. But overall, once a car is in a certain area where it performs optimally, like this level 5 setup, there's not a lot of nuance to a lot of like different tracks. Only when you go like long straights, very bumpy track, then yes, the setup might be different, but these levels you can like across a lot of different tracks. Now, to summarize this a little bit, we started out with a level 1. We got a very stiff front axle, which makes the front end aerodynamics really numbing it out. So it's really safe on that front end. And this red bar represents a stiff front, like the color, kind of the stiffness represents the stiffness of the spring. And this green area represents the soft springs on the back. So this box tends to move backwards really quickly. Then level 3 is going to be a little bit more yellow. It's allowing to be more frontward, backwards, and it's going to be harder to travel backwards. And on this level 5 we have these average springs, which makes aero shifts like more possible on the front, and it's going to be harder on the back. Now think about these colors as stiffness of springs and the length of these boxes on how your spring travel is and how that is kind of moving aerodynamic shifts front and backwards. Now this is just the McLaren on Le Mans Ultimate, but this is kind of always happening. I'm not sure how they simulate it in a sim, but if you think this is useful, please hit the like button, that really helps me out. And if you want to go deep dive on everything that I am explaining here, in the link below there's the Art of Car Setups. It's a full-blown car setup guide with all of these kinds of models explaining you how car setup actually works in sim racing. Now, if you want to know how this setup was created, then I highly recommend this video where I show you the system, how I build up the BMW in Le Mans Ultimate. Thanks for watching.